Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Jeff Pabst. I'm the Education and Outreach Coordinator here at LAGERS. And let's go through a few housekeeping items before we get into the webinar. If you have any questions today, those can be asked through the dialog box that appeared when you logged into the webinar. So there's a little section in there that you can type in questions. I'll see those questions as they come in and do my best to answer them as they come in. However, there may be some that are a little bit more specific to your situation and maybe more appropriate for me to give you a call after the webinar or shoot you an email, or there may be some that I might have to research and answer on. So just kind of keep those things in mind that some of the questions may not be answered, but a lion's share, if you ask one, I will give you an answer, even if it's not necessarily related to this webinar. The webinar today is really designed to keep things very high level. We're not going to get too deep into details today. We're basically going to show you how your benefit grows, the value of your benefit, and how it fits into your financial plan. Because ultimately, that's what this is. LAGERS is a financial instrument that you're going to use to give you some financial security in the future. And sometimes, because of the type of plan LAGERS is, it's very difficult to just understand how exactly you're going to use this and plan around it, because the other sorts of ways that you can plan and save around retirement don't work the way that LAGERS does. So we'll hopefully keep it pretty high level. 30 to 40 minutes today is about length. I did add a PDF of the presentation slides to the handout section on the webinar. As well, we will be using some polls today. So this will just be gauging just kind of your interaction with us, and then also gauging a little bit of what we've talked about, just to kind of keep it fresh versus me just sitting here talking the whole time. So let's get into it. This is always a good thing that I like to do at every webinar I do, is just to kind of give you a face with the name. You may have met me, you may not have. I've been with LAGERS going into my 10th year. I'm the Education and Outreach Coordinator here at LAGERS, and one of the most favorite things to do with this system is educate our members. It's and I know that sounds kind of vague, but there's lots of different ways I do that. We do pre-retirement seminars across the state. Those of you that are on this line today, some of you may have attended, some of you may not have. I would strongly suggest attending one before you retire. Also, some folks that are on the webinar today also have one that's hosted at your employer. If that's something you're interested in doing, we'll talk a little bit about that later, but I'd be the person you want to reach out to, that if you want to have an on-site meeting, we're happy to accommodate those meetings, and you just need to kind of let us know, and if we can fit you into our calendar, we will certainly do our best to do that. But the other parts of kind of what I do here at LAGERS, just to kind of give you a behind the scenes, pretty much any of the educational content you see, it's pretty well comes through the education, the little education sub department here. So that'd be any of your handouts that you may get, any of the handbooks, the website, all that good stuff. It's touched by us, because ultimately they are in terms of what the content is, it's educational. Okay, that's enough about me. That's not why you're here. So let's get into the presentation today. So the first things first, let's start with, how does LAGERS fit into your financial picture? So LAGERS is going to be your foundation for you to plan on. You know you're going to get it. You can easily determine how much you're going to get, and it's going to pay for you for the longevity of your lifetime. So it's going to pay you each and every month for the rest of your life once you reach eligibility and as long as you're vested. Okay? So each and every month, you're going to receive a monthly benefit from LAGERS that is something you can count on and know you're going to get, and know that the longer you work, the larger it gets. But there's other pieces of the pie when it comes to retirement planning. And one of those pieces is Social Security. Now, in what form it's going to come in for some folks that are on the webinar today, we don't know. We don't know if it's going to be if it's going to be at the same age, if it's going to be the same amount, if we're going to have to pay more for it. We don't really know that right now. But there's also a chunk of folks that are on the webinar today that know exactly when their retirement age is. They know they're probably pretty close to knowing exactly what kind of benefit they're going to get from Social Security, and they also have the security of knowing it's going to be there because they have the mechanisms in place. But it is a bit of an unknown. But I would say that you'll know that it's going to be there. It's just in what form. And then the other piece of it that is really, really important for folks to think about. A lot of people think that because they have loggers that they don't need to save money, and that's a misunderstanding. Loggers is a great foundation, but the only way it's going to be your end-all be-all is if you work somewhere a really long time. So if you don't want to work somewhere for a really long time and you don't want to work to your 60s, then you need to be saving some money alongside your loggers benefit. We're going to talk a little bit about that later. But just kind of keep that in mind, that loggers is the foundation for your retirement planning. It's not the end-all be-all. There's other pieces in here. You know, some of you on the line may also have some other sources of income that you're going to have in the future. Like maybe you're a landlord and you're going to be receiving rental income. That's one way. Maybe you own some farmland and you're going to generate income from that farmland in retirement. That's another way. Maybe you're going to work a part-time job or just go do something else. And work and move into your next chapter. Another source of income here. But if you're looking at solely, I'm not going to be working anymore, these are the three primary sources you're going to be looking at: savings, Social Security, and the foundation of loggers. So how we really fit in is for every month that you work for your employer, it adds to your future paycheck from loggers. So for each and every month you're working, you're adding a little bit more into that future paycheck. It's going to grow as you continue to work. If you leave loggers covered employment, it's going to stop growing. Okay, you won't continue to add towards your benefit. It'll be stuck at what it's at. And really, the way to get the most substantial financial benefit from this system is to stay in public service, particularly in loggers, for as long as you can. Now, obviously, not as long as you can. Ultimately, the idea is that eventually you're going to be able to draw this benefit. You don't want to be working forever. But the idea behind loggers is the longer you work, the larger that benefit's going to grow. And the more of your income it's going to replace in retirement. So how much can you expect from us? This is all going to be dependent on two primary factors. Well, three primary factors, but two of them are things you can simply control. The first is how long you work. The second is how much you make. Okay, so with that said, the longer you work, the more income you will receive from your loggers benefit. Now, if we just take out the salary component and we talk about a benefit multiplier, this is the election your employer makes. They choose what multiplier you have, and they can choose anywhere between 1% and 2%. Some cases, some folks may have a 2.5%, but that's for folks that don't participate in Social Security. But keep this in mind. This is generally how it's going to work. If you've got a 1.25% program, which we have a 1% program, but that's not included here. If you have a 1.25% program and you work 10 years, you're going to get 12.5% of your pre-retirement income. This is how you can determine what percentage of income you're going to receive from loggers. Simply by taking your multiplier times the number of years you think you're going to work. And for some of you that are on the webinar, it may be just the number of years you have worked, because maybe you're retiring in the next year. But you're going to know, you can easily determine what that number is. If you have the 1.25% program and you work 20 years, so you double that time, you're getting 25% of your pre-retirement income. If If you've got the 1.75% program, it's skipping down a couple lines, and you work 10 years, you're getting 17.5, or if you work 20 years, you're getting 35%. Service credit is the one piece that you have the most control over. You control how long you stick it out in public service. Okay, so if you have the most control over that, you also then you have a big share in the control of what percentage of your income is going to be replaced by this system. Because the longer you work in the LAGERS system, the more service credit you have, the larger the percentage that's going to be replaced. Okay, and I'll get to where this is important in just a minute. But you can easily determine this. You take your multiplier times your years of service that you plan to work for those that are early in their career, and those that are later in their career. You could say, and by later I mean nearing retirement. You could say, well, I can take my multiplier times the number of years I have worked, or the number of years I have worked plus maybe a couple more years, just to see exactly how that percentage could change if you work a couple more years. But ultimately, this is a really good way of starting a way of thinking about a pension plan versus thinking about the dollars, thinking about how much income is going to be replaced. And I'll show you why here in just a minute. Okay, so this is a really good piece of just how valuable this benefit is. This is just an example. We're using some generic examples, but if you have a $55,000 final average salary, you have 25 years of service in the system, and you worked all 25 years at the 1.5% multiplier, 10 years into retirement, you would have received $206,250. 15 years into retirement, you'd receive $309,375. 20 years is $412,500. 25 years, $515,625. And you can see so on and so forth with 30 and 35. That number continually increases for how long you live. The longer you live, the larger that number is going to be, but it's also showing you that it is the foundation to plan upon. It's going to continually pay you a monthly benefit until you pass away. Okay, the difference is this kind of shows you if you're trying to save this amount of money, but you don't know how long you're going to live, you could say, well, I'm going to live 10 years, but if you live 20, if I live 20, you can kind of get the idea that this is really helping you in knowing that you're going to get this no matter how long you live. It's a very interesting way of planning. Now, I'm going to just pick this middle number of $515,625. And I'm going to pick that number as that's kind of on average, when folks retire at the age of 60, we expect them to live somewhere between 20 and 25 years into retirement. I'm picking the maximum number of 25 years, but there are folks that have lived 30 and 35 years into retirement in our system. So that those numbers that are beyond the 515 aren't unrealistic. They do happen. Okay, but let's just look at this $515,625. If over your 25-year retirement, your LAGERS benefit pays you the amount, in order to save this on your own, you would need to save 15.7% of your monthly salary every month for your entire career and never touch the money. Now, there's a couple of assumptions that are built into this. This calculator, in case you're wondering, is on bankrate.com. It's a quick little deal, but basically what I did there was I took that same annual salary that we had used for the example, $55,000. I assumed a salary increase of 2%. I assume the current age of 35, a retirement age of 60, a 401k balance of 0, so saying you're starting at 0, and an annual rate of return of 5%, which is a little less than what the market generates usually on an ongoing basis. But I'd say that's kind of another realistic investment assumption, because most folks aren't willing to just throw their money straight in the market. They want to have some preservation of their assets. So they typically don't always get that market. Good question. I just had someone, how does my age figure into my benefit? The longer you work, the more you get. The age is more of when you can retire. So we'll get into exactly when you can retire in just a minute. But generally speaking, This is someone that works a 25-year career, starts at the age of 35, retires at 60. If someone was 25, this would be them retiring at 55. So the younger you are and the further away you are from retirement, the less that percentage of your monthly salary every month that you would need to save. But this is hugely important because what this is showing you is this is just to replace 35% of one's pre-retirement income. And I haven't talked to you about, or we haven't talked about at all, the amount that the amount that you need to have in retirement. And it's not 35%; it's larger than that. So just keep the 15.7% in mind when we get into a couple of these other things. 15.7% of your salary each and every month from hire to retirement, and never touch it. You got to be pretty disciplined to do that. That's for sure. So how do we fit into your logger's financial picture now? If you're thinking about leaving employment before you're vested, you don't have any financial benefit here unless you've paid in contributions. But the benefit itself, when you really start to lock in where you're actually going to receive something from this system, is when you become vested. Okay, if you work 4 years and stop, or even if it's 4 years and 11 months and stop working, you're not vested. So once you get to that 5-year or 60-month mark, is when you become vested. Once you are vested, this is a fancy term for when you are guaranteed to receive a benefit. Okay, guaranteed to receive a benefit at 5 years. Okay, so we talked about earlier a little bit of we talked a little bit about what increases your logger's benefit. Now we're talking about when you can draw it. So eligibility. The first is vesting. The next is reaching an eligibility age. But we'll get into that in just a second. What I also wanted to show you is just how your benefit increases with service, and also assuming some salary increases throughout time. So if you have 10 years of service credit, and this is also showing you how to calculate the dollar amounts. Earlier we talked about replacement of income, a percentage of replacement. This is if you're looking at trying to get dollar amounts. If you want to do that, this is one way to do it. This is also just kind of showing you how a benefit grows over time. So if you have a 1.5% multiplier in 10 years of service, and your average salary, you started at $3,500 and now you're at $3,800 per month, and you quit, your vested benefit would be $570 per month for life. If you work 20 years at the 1.5% multiplier, your average salary increases about 2% year over year for that 10-year period. You take the 1.5% times the $4,200 times 20 years, that gives you $1,260 per month for life. Okay? If you get to that 25-year career, your average salary increased a little bit because of salary increases, but the benefit multiplier remained the same, but you have 25 years of service. You multiply all three of those together, that monthly benefit grows to $1,687. Two of the primary driving components to someone's benefit growing is how long they work and how much they make. The more they make, the longer they work, the larger their benefit will be. It's as simple as that. The more you make, the longer you work, the more the benefit will be. Okay. Well, I'm not sure why I have two of those slides. There we go. Okay. So let's do a few things. I've got a couple polls I want to launch. The first is what increases your logger's benefit? What increases your logger's benefit? So this is just a little quick quiz that we're going to launch real quick. I'll give you about 30 seconds to answer. You can put the answer on the screen once I launch it. And then once I get to 30 seconds, I'll kind of give you guys an update of what the results were. And then we will just move on to the next thing. So here we go. So what increases your logger's benefit? How much I make, how long I work, how much I save, how much I make, and how long I work. All right, got 5 seconds left. 80% of folks have answered. Okay. So the results of that were the lion's share of you did answer correctly. How much I make and how long I work. There was a couple out there that did not, but it wasn't entirely wrong. It was someone how long I work, which is very important. The longer you work, the larger that benefit gets. But as well, because of that benefit formula that we just talked about, the longer you work and the more you make, the larger your benefit will be. Okay? So let's launch one more poll here. Oh, we haven't talked about that, so I can't launch that poll yet. Sorry. Okay, so how do we fit into your financial picture right now? Vesting. Vesting is by far for new hires one of the most important things to remember is when do I become vested? And that's at 5 years of service. Just had a question that says how much taxes and fees come out of each monthly check. That's going to be determined by the IRS and a CPA. We can taxes when you get to that point. We can apply tax tables. We can withhold a dollar amount or tax tables with an additional dollar amount. But ultimately, it's your tax liability, and you'll have to make those choices. We don't have any sort of additional fees that come out aside from regular income taxes. Good question. Okay. So right now, vesting, for those new hires that are on here or folks that have a few years of service, vesting is by far one of the most important things you can remember. The second most important thing is the longer you work, the more you get, just like we just talked about. Okay, but vesting, 5 years of service, get to that 5-year mark. If you can't, if you're like, you know what, man, this job is not great, it's not a good fit, but you're 4 years away. If you can make it one more year, you're vested, and then you have financial benefit coming from this system, no matter what. Okay, so get to that vesting point, 5 years of service. All right. Next is disability and survivor benefits. So if something happens to you right now while you're working, you could have a disability or survivor benefit payable. Okay, so we'll get into a little bit of details of that in the next slide. And then if you're paying in employee contributions, those are guaranteed to you. So if you leave before you're vested, you're guaranteed to get at least those back. So kind of keep that piece in mind. That's something to definitely be thinking about is employee contributions are guaranteed. Okay, just got a question that said, can I buy my military time to reach vesting if I leave at 4 years? Well, you have to purchase your service before you leave. You can purchase up to 4 years of military service if you choose, and you just need to be an active member. You do not need to be vested to purchase that time. I will give you just the variables of what it costs. I don't know exactly what it's going to cost each one of you on this webinar because it's an actuarial calculation. But things that drive the cost are age, salary, and benefits you have at your employer. The closer to retirement you are, the more expensive it is. The more wages you make and the better your benefits are at your employers, the more it's going to cost. Other than that, that's about as deep as I can go for cost. You can get an estimated cost from 2 different sources. If you want to go on MyLoggers, you can do that. And if you have a MyLoggers account, if not, just type in on your mobile or on any sort of internet browser, members.mologgers.org. It'll take you straight to the portal, and then you need to enroll now. If you already have a MyLoggers account, just go to Service Purchase, click on it. It doesn't allow you to actually do a purchase. It just allows you to do an estimate of up to 48 months. Okay, so let's talk about disability and survivor benefits really quickly. We classify them in 2 ways. If they are non-duty related, you have to be vested to get a benefit, or you have to have been vested if it was a death for your spouse to get a benefit. Okay, and the benefit will be calculated using service credit to date. So if you've got 9 years of service credit and something happens to you that makes you unable to perform your current job, then you would be eligible for a non-duty related disability benefit based on those 9 years of service and your current wages. If it is duty related, vesting is not required. So day one on the job, if something happens to you that makes you unable to perform your current job or death occurs, you do not need to be vested. As well, we're going to extend service credit to you as if you worked until the age of 60. Okay, so that's even for public service folks that might have a 55 retirement age, it extends to the age of 60. Okay, so kind of keep that in mind that you don't have to be vested for a duty related benefit, and we will extend it to the age of 60. Now, the folks who are paid if it's a death is a spouse of at least 2 years or dependent children. If you don't have a spouse, a dependent child or children gets an equal share of 60% of your benefit. All right. So if you don't have a spouse, we'll pay dependent children. If you do not have dependent children and you don't have a spouse, the only thing that's payable from this system would be employee contributions you have made, because those are always guaranteed. Okay, so later on at eligibility, how does LAGERS fit into the future me financial picture? At eligibility, you're going to receive monthly income for life. And of course, when you retire and you actually begin drawing this benefit, there's a part where you're going to make a choice of how you want this benefit paid, so it can pay for multiple lifetimes potentially. That's the choice you make at retirement. It's not something you make now. So when can you draw your benefit? Vesting, again, 60 months of service. 60 months of service, okay, or 5 years, all right? And then when is the benefit payable? Now, for the lion's share of the folks that are on this webinar, your retirement age for general employees is age 60, and then for police officers and firefighters, I forgot that's not on this slide for whatever reason, but for police officers and firefighters, the age is 55. Those are our normal eligibility ages, where you can start drawing at that age or later, and you would receive a benefit unreduced. You can draw up to 5 years early under those what are called normal retirement ages. Okay, you can draw up to 5 years early with the reduction. It's reduced by 6% per year, or 0.5% for every month that you are younger than 60 or 55, whichever age is. Okay, so kind of keep that at top of mind as well. When can I get this benefit? Well, first I need to become vested. 5 years of service. Got to get to that point. Then after that, I then need to reach an eligibility age. Now, some folks on the line may have the rule of 80. The rule of 80 is, we'll do really quickly. Rule of 80 is an early retirement provision that removes reductions and allows folks to retire when the sum of their age and their service is equal to 80. So if you are age 20 when you start, and you start an employer that has the rule of 80, if you work 30 years, that's 30 years of service credit. If you work 30 years from the age of 50, or from the age of 20, that's going to make you 50. The age of 50 plus your 30 years of service credit equals 80. That 50-year-old person can draw a benefit from LAGERS with no reductions. Okay, so the rule of 80 is an early retirement provision that waives reductions as long as the sum of your age and service equals 80. Keep in mind, if you do have the rule of 80, for it to actually benefit you, you have to work up to your rule of 80 date or beyond it to draw the benefit unreduced. If you quit before that, you delay drawing benefit until 60 or 55, whichever age is, whatever group you fall into. Okay, so let's launch one more poll. Well, I've got two more actually, but we're going to do one right now. So we talked a little bit about when can we draw our benefit. So let's see if make sure that it's sunk in. When can you draw your LAGERS benefit? Once I have 5 years of service and reach my eligibility age, forever from now, or never? Okay, I'll give you guys 30 seconds. When can you draw your benefit? Once I have 5 years of service and reach eligibility age, forever from now, or never? I'm waiting for the comic in the room to put in never. All right, so we've got 6 seconds left. 80% have voted. All right, so everybody answered correctly. I'm really glad, because those answers were pretty obvious. But yes, keep in mind, vesting, again, 5 years, and then it's reaching eligibility age, and that's where it's so important, is once you reach that age, you have this significant, substantial financial benefit that's going to help you through your later years in life. Okay, let's do a quick little future me exercise. So this is more of showing you just how valuable it is, but also it shows you a little bit of how to kind of plan around LAGERS. Because again, it's just not, it doesn't work the way that you would think it would work. All right, so if you start at the age of 28, and your current salary when you started was $35,000, and your planned retirement age is 60, and you plan to have a more modest lifestyle when you retire. I'm not saying that you're not able to travel or anything. I'm not saying that you just sit at home and eat dog food or anything. What I am saying is that you're not having an expensive lifestyle, like maybe RVing across the country 10 months out of the year, or traveling to Europe and spending several months there. I mean, that's a much more expensive lifestyle, and having more of a modest lifestyle is what we're talking about. So occasional travel, living close to home, things like that. And if that's the lifestyle you'd like to have, experts across the industry have a number that they throw out there, and it's somewhere between 75 and 90% of your pre-retirement income. So I threw in the 85%. So 85% of your pre-retirement income is what you need to replace in order to have this modest, comfortable lifestyle. So when you get to age 60, which is a long way away for this 28-year-old, they'd have 32 years of service credit. Their salary, with to get 2% salary increases that entire town, will be around $55,000. To replace 85% of that pre-retirement income, they're going to need $47,000 annually for the rest of their life. Okay? Their retirement account is going to all depend on how much you're going to have in that retirement account. Is really going to depend on how much they save. And saving is important here. So in this graphic, it's real quick, but your pre-retirement salary on the left, $55,000, you need to replace where that dotted line is at, 85% or $47,000. Okay? So at age 60, your pre-retirement salary of $55,000, if you have the 1.5% multiplier and you work that amount of time, you're going to get 48% of your pre-retirement income replaced by loggers alone. Because how did I get that math? Let's go all the way back to the beginning. We got that math by taking the 1.5% times 32 years. Okay, remember, it's the multiplier you have times the years of service you either think you're going to work or that you have worked. Okay? And then Social Security, this is just an estimate based on several different sources. Is if it's at the age of 67, you're going to get around 20%. That's across the population. I think we all have an idea of how Social Security may work, but if you don't, the higher your earnings are, the lower your percentage will be. The lower your earnings are, the higher the percentage of your income that will be replaced by Social Security. So on average, it's around 20%. And again, your retirement account will depend on the lifestyle you want to live. So you kind of know what you're going to get from loggers, you know what you're going to get from Social Security, and the amount that you need in between is going to depend on when you retire and what kind of lifestyle you want to live. So if you want to retire either in your very early 60s or maybe even your 50s, you're going to have a significant amount of time in which you're going to need income. Versus if you retire at 65 or 67 or later, not that I'm encouraging one way or the other, just keep in mind that if your goal is, I want to be done working by the age of 58. Well, if your goal is I want to be done working by the age of 58, then you got to keep in mind Social Security is kick in until then. So there's a lot of other things to think about. So let's look into it. Before you're drawing Social Security, you're needing that $47,000 of pre-retirement income. From loggers, on this example, you're going to get, it's the 1.5% multiplier, 32 years of service, and a $55,000 average salary. You're going to get $22,560 from loggers alone. Okay, so there's your foundation. But since you're before Social Security, this could be any time before that when you could draw Social Security. Then you're going to still need to be relying heavily on savings in those years. Okay, very heavily, because you don't have any other sources of income. You have another source like maybe part-time income or maybe a rental income or farming income. That's going to fit in there somewhere. But if you're only planning on, I want to be done working, not doing anything, I just want to be enjoying life, you'll get $20,560 each year from loggers, and then you're going to need to fill in the gap with savings. Okay. Someone just asked, are you penalized if you retire before a certain age? Well, that depends on if you have the rule of 80 or normal retirement ages. But if you have normal retirement, this is how it works. If you are a general employee, your retirement age is the age of 60. If you are a police officer or firefighter, it's the age of 55. If you retire before those ages, you can retire up to 5 years before that, but it is reduced. It's a reduced benefit. It's reduced by 6% per year or 0.5% for every month that you are younger than the age of 60 or 55. Hope that answers your question. Okay. So now you're drawing Social Security, whenever that may be. So maybe it's 62, maybe it's 67, whatever it is, right? Here's what you're looking at. Well, look at that. Your logger's benefit didn't change. It's the foundation. It's going to continually pay you each and every month for as long as you live. But there's a couple other pieces that are built into this, right? Now you've got Social Security to count on to pay you for the rest of your life, and then you've got your savings. The reliance on savings at that point is a little bit less. Okay, not that I'm saying you won't be using as much savings, but you're not going to have a huge reliance for regular income, right? So kind of keep that in mind. But again, loggers being the foundation. So if you live a lifetime, total retirement of age 60 to death at the age of 85, again, is kind of that average of 25 years of what we assume most folks are going to live. You'd get $660,000 from loggers alone. Now, where your savings and your Social Security fit into that piece to get you to a total of 85% of your pre-retirement income from 60 to 85, that's the math you need to be doing. You need to be doing the math of, okay, I know what I'm going to get from loggers. And Social Security, I could probably, especially if you're close to retirement, you can look at your benefit statements and kind of figure out what you're going to get from them. And then you're going to say, okay, savings is my other gap. I need to fill it in with an X, whatever that number may be. But you got to do that math. This is how to plan around a pension plan. Pension plan is going to be your foundation. You've got another source with Social Security. And savings is going to fill the gap in between what loggers and Social Security can't fill to meet your lifestyle expectations. In this case, this is that moderate lifestyle. If you're wanting to have a more expensive lifestyle, you're going to need more than 85%. So you need to plan on that accordingly as well. Okay, so what am I telling you here? I'm telling you that loggers is not going to be your end-all be-all, and it can't be. Okay, what you're saying, what you're probably hearing is, okay, so Jeff's telling me I need to be saving money alongside my pension plan. And hopefully those of you that are later in your career have done a little bit of this, okay? But you need to start saving for your future self and start saving today if you haven't started already. And I know saving money is hard. It takes discipline. It takes a consistent dedication to doing this, to saving the money and not going out and spending it on the brand new car or going out and spending it on the new boat or whatever you're wanting to spend your money on. It's difficult because you want that new boat or you want that new motorcycle or whatever it is you want to buy, but saving money a little bit at a time and consistently increasing it can make a huge impact on reaching financial security when you're eligible to draw your logger's benefit. Okay, so start saving today. Start small and then regularly increase. Your 457, or if your employer has a 457 provider that allows you to do an auto increase, I would encourage doing that and time it around when you anticipate you're going to be getting regular pay increases if you get them. Okay, small increases over time have a significant impact on your ability to accumulate some assets. Let me show you an example. Whoops, that wasn't supposed to be that way. So in the backside, what it actually is it's showing you the amount that if you just start saving with a $35,000 average salary, you have your 32 years to save, okay? And you start with a 1% savings right now, and you do an automatic increase up to a maximum of 20% of your salary, and then it just caps out at 20% until you retire 5 years later. If that's what happens, where you're auto increasing, look at the amount of assets you would have with a $35,000 salary and 25 years of service, or 32 years of service is what this is showing. It's just showing the example we just used of starting at 28 to the age of 60. You'd be able to accumulate a big chunk of assets that you're going to need to get you from when you begin drawing your benefit until you pass away. Starting small, increasing on a small level on a regular basis is the best way to do it. Because what the blue line shows is this is without an increase. If you just, okay, I'm just going to do 1%, but then you just set it and you forget it entirely, you're only going to accumulate $35,280. I will tell you that's likely not going to be enough unless you work a much longer amount of time and accumulate more service. more service you have, the larger the chunk you're going to get from loggers, the smaller the need you have for savings. But that's kind of the deal. If you're not wanting to work a long amount of time, you need to be saving a little bit of money. And increase just by doing an accelerated contribution where you're auto increasing that amount on a regular basis would increase the assets by over $400,000 just by starting small and increasing on a small increment each and every year. Can definitely help you get there. This is one tool that you can definitely use if your employer's 457 plan has an auto increase. I'd strongly suggest using it. It's a very, very good way of getting you to the point of financial security in the future. So there's several ways to stay connected. We have a blog, we have social media. That's all I have on the content, by the way. There's social media. There's all kinds of different things. But before we do that, I've got one last poll that I'd like to launch. It's to be financially stable in retirement. Industry experts recommend I replace X% of my retirement income. We just talked about this. To be financially stable in retirement, industry experts recommend I replace blank percent of my income. So a lion's share of us did answer this correctly. 85% was that number that I picked out of the air. It depends on the article you read and the experts you're reading. Some say 70%, some say 90%. I pick somewhere between 80 and 85 usually is the number I usually try to pick. But there's a couple people actually answered 100%, and that's really interesting that was your thought process, is that you need to replace 100% of your pre-retirement income. If you're replacing 100% of your pre-retirement income, that likely means that you're going to be living a more expensive lifestyle. So just kind of keep that in mind. As long as you have, paid down debt and you have less expenses, when you're actually in that point in your life where you're not working anymore, you may not need 100% of your pre-retirement income to be comfortable. Okay, so staying connected. There's a couple ways. Staying connected with us on social media is probably a really good way for you to get more information about your loggers benefit in a format that is easy to understand and in more bite sizes instead of reading our 52-page handbook. That 52-page handbook is a great resource, but holy cow, it is packed full of information and it can be easily overwhelming. The best part about our Facebook and specifically our blog is it breaks things into real small size small bite-size pieces of information that are easily digestible and not too much all at once, and hopefully don't overwhelm you. There's a couple other things that you can do here. First thing is we're on Facebook. If you have any friends or if you'd like to attend it as well and hear pretty well close to the same information we've heard today, we're doing a Facebook Live next week? Yep, next weweek on February 25th at noon. I'll be going live discussing the value that Loggers brings to you. It's really important that the folks that need to hear this information, particularly our newer hires that may not quite understand how Loggers works and just how valuable this benefit plan is, that they need to hear this information, and hopefully they're on Facebook. So if you see us go live, go ahead and tune in and share it out and tell folks to attend as well. But there's another thing that we're launching that you may or may not know about. It's called the Loggers Lunch Break. That lunch break is taking this presentation and putting it into an in-person form, and it's specific about your employer's benefits. It keeps it very high level, just like this did. And we incorporate whether or not you have a defined contribution plan, and we incorporate your specific benefit plans and things like that to kind of help folks understand just how valuable this benefit is. And so definitely think about if you'd like to have us come on site. we'd be happy to do that. And the way to sign up is have your HR person or have an HR person or your city clerk or whomever might be handling your personnel sorts of responsibilities, and have them go to retire.molagers.org/LLB. And then there's a form on there that they'll need to complete, and then that gets sent to me, and then I'll circle with them about setting up dates and things like that. But the lunch break is a fantastic way to get some of your newer hires that may not quite understand how Loggers works and just how valuable it is and how it fits into their financial puzzle. And it brings it down to in person. And I think that's incredibly valuable. So if you want us to come down, if you want me to come to your employer, I'd be happy to do that. If it's in a lunch break form, great. If you want us to come and do an on-site seminar, talk to your HR person, have them email me. My email address was on the first slide. If you downloaded the PDFs from the handouts, you can find that email address and shoot me an email. We'd be happy to host one on site as long as it fits into our calendar. Keep in mind, our calendars fill up about 2 months in advance. So if you need something more immediate, it's unlikely we'll be able to accommodate. But if you give us a little bit more of a long-term shot of, in the next several months, we'll probably be able to fit something in. So let us know if you want us to come on site and do something like this for your folks. But that's all I have for today. If you guys have any other questions, please feel free to type them in. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have for the next couple of minutes. I'll keep the webinar open for the next, let's say till 2:50. Unless I don't get any questions in the next couple minutes, then I'll close it. But thanks again for coming. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and travel safe if you guys have some slick roads out there. Thanks.